What's going on, everybody? Welcome into episode 127 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast on this Tuesday, December 2nd, 2025. I'm your host, Zach Malum. But before we get started, please subscribe below. Follow all of my social accounts. Let's start things off in the world of baseball as we had some breaking news late Monday evening. The New York Mets have agreed to a 3-year, $51 million deal with former Yankee reliever Devin Williams. An interesting move by the Mets on December 1st, but David Stearns goes out and gets his guy. Of course, Stearns, the longtime general manager of the Milwaukee Brewers back from 2015 to 2023, then joins the Mets in 2024 to become the president of baseball operations. But David Stearns, the same guy who made the tough decision back in 2022 up in Milwaukee to trade longtime closer Josh Hader, who had a down year in 22. He flip-flops him to the San Diego Padres, and it ultimately makes room for the new closer of the Milwaukee Brewers, Devin Williams. An interesting move, really, in the end by the Mets after Devin Williams had a couple of seasons, 2024, where he had stress fractures in his back, really struggled to stay healthy for the first couple of months of the season, but Met fans really love him for what he did in 2024. Had 14 saves on the year during the regular season, a 1.25 ERA, but the big storyline was in the playoffs, wild card series, game 3, it all on the line, season on the line, and he gives up a home run to Pete Alonso that sent the Mets to the next round. They ultimately made it to the NLCS, of course, but then Williams gets traded to the New York Yankees in 2025. 4-6 record, 4.79 ERA, 18 saves on the year, a very up and down year for Williams, who really started off slow in 25. When you look at Williams, though, non-save opportunities, he really started to get better. When you look at save opportunities at first, 5.66 ERA, 244 opponent average. That is completely unheard of from a guy like Devin Williams, who had a 129 op average back in 2023, his best season of his career. Then you go to non-save opportunities in 2025, and you did see the improvement. You take him out of the closer's role, you put him in not as high leverage situations for this Yankees team. Of course, the fans were really down on him and really making him hear it when he was struggling as the closer. But non-save opportunities, 4.35 ERA, a 171 op average. So you see the improvement with the op average, and that's what you're looking for in Williams, a guy who has a real nasty airbender that when he locates his fastball, he can really get that airbender, that changeup, really going. He was not locating his fastball really at all in 2025 in the early stages. Then he started to get comfortable and was really good down the stretch. A really impactful player for the Yankees. Then they made it to the postseason, and he was a really solid guy out of the bullpen, a really solid reliever for this Yankees team. So that's what the Mets are looking for from Williams. They're looking for him to probably be the setup man to one Edwin Diaz. That's the other side of this story, because Devin Williams is not coming in, you don't think, to be the closer of the New York Mets. You saw him a season ago really struggle in New York to be a closer on the other side of town for the Yankees. They cannot trust him to be the closer of the Mets for this upcoming season. They need to go out and give Edwin Diaz the largest contract that a closer's ever gotten. He deserves it. I think the Mets are desperate to get Diaz back, and they cannot trust Devin Williams in that closer spot. If they do, I hate this move. I think it's a horrible move by David Stearns. Yes, you're going back to an old friend in Devin Williams, who was really good in 23 as a closer, but this is not the same Devin Williams, who's dealt with injuries in 24, dealt with the up and down year as a closer in 25 with the Yankees. It is not the same Devin Williams they had a couple of years ago up in Milwaukee, and he definitely needs to be a setup man in this bullpen. You gave him a lot of money, but money is not the problem here. $51 million for Devin Williams, yeah, you live with it because your owner is Steve Cohen. However, if he is the closer of the New York Mets, they are in a world of trouble heading into this upcoming year. And this is coming from a Yankee fan who really watched Devin Williams every single game go out there and really cause a lot of chaos in terms of this Yankees team. Ninth inning, when you need it done, Devin Williams did not get it done most of the time for the Yankees in 2025. So the Mets still have a lot of work to do. It all comes down now to Edwin Diaz coming back for the Mets. And if he does, then you have a very strong 1-2 punch between Devin Williams and Edwin Diaz at the back end of that Mets bullpen. So we'll see what happens, but the Mets make a monster move. They end up getting a former Yankee once again. It's Devin Williams this time. Clay Holmes last year, Devin Williams this year. Devin Williams, the newest member of the New York Mets. Let's shift things to football as both New York teams were in action this weekend, and we'll start things out at MetLife Stadium with the New York Jets as they hosted the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday at a rainy MetLife Stadium. But the Jets get their third victory of the season, and it came down to the buzzer. The old man, the kicker, Nick Folk, hits a 56-yard field goal as time expired, gives the Jets a 27-24 win against the Atlanta Falcons, and a 4-8 Falcons team now versus a 3-9 Jets team. A 3-9 Jets team, you'll take that right now. You're looking at this Jets team who has a lot of motivation to get the job done each and every week. They're really seeing the fight from this Jets squad. And Tyrod Taylor, who started his third game this season at quarterback, looked pretty solid in this game. He did a great job of getting it to his top weapon in this one, Adonai Mitchell, who had a career day. His first career touchdown was a 50-plus yard bomb from Taylor in the middle of this one. And he also had his first career 100-yard receiving game. 8 receptions, 102 receiving yards, and that receiving touchdown on 12 targets. A great job by Tyrod Taylor getting it to his top guy in A.D. Mitchell on the day. The Jets also did a good job, like I said, down the stretch on defense. They really, really looked good against Kirk Cousins, who did put up 24 points up on the board. But this Jets defense, you saw the fight in the fourth quarter. They really did a good job down the stretch, getting the ball back for this offense and putting them in good situations. You look at this game overall, only 159 passing yards from Taylor, but he did enough. 19 of 33 on the day, and a really solid outing, you would say, by Tyrod Taylor, as the Jets, who struggled week after week on offense, put up 27 points in this game, and that's exactly what you want to see. The other story of this game was special teams. Special teams stepping up week after week for this Jets team. That's a couple weeks in a row where special teams has really made a difference for the Jets. And you look at the kick returns, the punt returns. Isaiah Williams was a big part of that, but you also had a lot of other contributions, including Quantez Stiggers, who recovered a muff punt on the 2-yard line of the Atlanta Falcons that ultimately led to a Breece Hall rushing touchdown. So the Jets, great work on special teams, great work on defense, and even great work on offense. 27 points, you'll take that. The Jets end up getting their third win of the season, and you're seeing the positive juju that Aaron Glenn is bringing to this team. It's a great win for Darren Muji in this game as well. A lot of the additions really stepping up, A.D. Mitchell being one of them. He also had the defensive line, who's been really good recently. You look at Jawan Briggs, Harrison Phillips, who have had great contributions every game in the last 3 games or so. And it's really stepping up right now. Darren Muji, his impact on this Jets team and the trades that he made during the offseason and during this season so far are really starting to pay off. And you're seeing the positives of the guys that he acquired in those big-time deals. So the Jets end up getting their third win of the year. They end up heading into a matchup against the Miami Dolphins next week, and we'll talk about that game that takes place on Sunday. We'll talk about that one on Friday's episode. But on the other side of New York, the New York Giants were also in action this weekend, but they were taking on the New England Patriots on Monday Night Football, and the Giants got trucked in this game. 2-11 they are on the year now. Still do not have a win away from home. 0-8 is the record. A 33-15 loss to the Patriots. And New England, you got to give them credit. They are red hot so far this season. The number 1 seed in the AFC. 11-2 on the year. and New England is really stepping up. They showed what they can do in the postseason against this Giants team that is really struggling right now. Defense, offense, wherever you look, it's not pretty right now for this Giants team. Defensively, they cannot make a tackle. There's not one guy who has stepped up recently to get the job done on defense for the Giants. Game after game, week after week, they cannot stop their opponent on the defensive side of the ball. Drake May had a very good game in this one and really just went through the Giants D in this game. A really solid outing, 24 of 31, 2 passing touchdowns, 282 passing yards. You cannot say the same on the other side for the Giants. Jackson Dart, 17 of 24, pretty solid there. 139 passing yards, though, on the road in a primetime game is not going to get the job done. He did have that passing touchdown to Darius Slayton. Devin Singletary also added a touchdown of his own, but the Giants did not have any answers for New England and the high-powered offense that they brought into this game. A really solid game for Drake May in this one, like I mentioned, but the Giants are really struggling on the defensive end. They are also struggling on special teams. They cannot figure out how to make a tackle. They cannot get the job done on special teams either in terms of their kicker, Younghoe Koo, just completely missing a ball or just not going out a ball on a long field goal that he probably had a chance on. He doesn't even kick it, and Jamie Gillum, the punter, ends up getting tackled, gets crushed by the defensive line of the Patriots. That's just the story of the Giants season so far. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out, because Younghoe Koo, what are you doing? Kick the field goal. Try and get it up through the uprights so you can try and have a close enough game and try and win the game against the New England Patriots. But that was not what happened for this Giants team, and another really disappointing loss in the end. Mike Kafka, the interim head coach right now, the Giants starting to look at who's going to be their head coach for next season. It's going to be a long process because this Giants team is just all downhill right now. The only team eliminated in terms of playoff contention starting last week. They were the only team eliminated. There's going to be more teams added to that, but the Giants really near the bottom of the NFL right now and really struggling to get wins. They just cannot do so. 2-11 record heading into the bye week. Another disappointing loss. 33-15 on the road. The Patriots take down the Giants up at Gillette Stadium. Shifting things to the world of basketball, though, as the New York Knicks are in action tonight. They have a very tough game on the road up in Boston at 8 o'clock start as the Knicks take on the Celtics. The Knicks coming into this game under the radar with all the injuries that they have. A sneaky 4-game win streak for this Knicks team. I know they're playing really weak opponents during that stretch, but they did beat the Milwaukee Bucks in that time frame, 118-109 on Friday. They ended up following it up with a win on Sunday evening, 116-94 against the Toronto Raptors. A couple of wins before that. Brooklyn on the road at Barclays Center, 113-100. And then you look at Charlotte, 129-101. They defeat the Charlotte Hornets on the road. So the Knicks, a 4-game win streak heading into this game against Boston. Like I said, it's an 8 o'clock start tonight, and Boston comes into this game as 1.5-point favorites, total sitting at 230.5. Knicks 13-6 on the season. Celtics 11-9. But the Celtics 6-4 on their home floor this season. Knicks have not been good on the road, except for those couple of wins that they rattled off against very weak opponents in Brooklyn and Charlotte recently. But a 3-5 away record is not going to do it for this Knicks team that has very deep aspirations in terms of the NBA playoffs. 13-6 record, so they're really starting off hot this year. They've really looked good so far, even with the injuries. Jalen Brunson missed some time. You got OG Anunoby out right now as well. You also have some injuries. Landry Shamet, an impactful player who could have been in the starting lineup had he stayed healthy for this Knicks team down the stretch with the absence of Anunoby. But you look at this Knicks team and you say 13-6 with all that they've been through so far this season, you'll take it. They have to be better on the road, though. 3-5 is not going to cut it, and Boston is going to give them a run for their money. Of course, they're without Jason Tatum for a lot of this season, so their star player out for a lot of the year. But Derek White's a game-time decision tonight. That's an interesting one heading into this game. Probably will play. When you look at this matchup, though, Celtics, Knicks, two teams that faced off a season ago, of course, in the playoffs when Tatum got hurt. Then you look at the Celtics now. I think they have a lot of motivation to go out and beat this Knicks team and try and get some revenge. Make sure you tune in later tonight, an 8 o'clock start up in Boston, a phenomenal Atlantic Division matchup between the Knicks and the Celtics at TD Garden in Boston. But let's finish things off today out in the world of college basketball, as St. John's had a long and busy week a week ago out in Vegas at the Players Era Festival. They took on very tough opponents. They end up getting one win. Baylor, they take them down on Tuesday, 96-81 the win. Bryce Hopkins had 26 points in that game, but sandwiched around that win against Baylor is two tough losses against top 25 opponents. They started with Monday against Iowa State, number 15 Iowa State. They end up losing that game 83-82. It came down to the wire, but the Cyclones end up getting the win. And then they go into Wednesday not knowing their opponent. They end up figuring out it's Auburn on the calendar. Number 21 Auburn defeats St. John's on Wednesday 85-74. So a very long week for St. John's, and you got to take the positives. They did get a nice win against Baylor, but now after those couple of losses against Iowa State and Auburn, St. John's, a team that had very high aspirations heading into this season, now has 3 losses, all of them against top 25 opponents. And that's not a great case when you're heading towards the month of March pretty soon. That's going to be a later story for them. But when you head into the month of March, you have to prove throughout the season that you have really solid wins, and St. John's is struggling to get those out of conference right now. A couple of very tough opponents in the SEC, of course, with Alabama and Auburn so far this season, and Iowa State's going to be a top 10 team this season, in my opinion, but you have to win one of those games, maybe even 2 of those games. If you just get one, then you're thinking a lot different about St. John's. You're thinking, okay, they can hang around with the big boys. They just had a couple of tough games where it came down to the wire and they did not get the job done. These games, the Iowa State game was close. The Bama game, they lost it down the stretch. Then you look at the Auburn game, and it wasn't close down the stretch either. So you look at it, when you look at St. John's, they have a lot to prove when they head into these next couple of games, especially Ole Miss coming to the Garden on Saturday. Then you have a tough game against Kentucky in the later stages of December. But then you get into conference play and the tough games that you're going to go up against, UConn being one of them. You got to win one of those games. If you lose both, then you're completely taking yourself out of consideration for a top seed in the NCAA tournament. That's what it comes down to for this St. John's team. It's going to be a very, very tough couple of weeks, and they have to beat Kentucky. They have to beat Ole Miss to still prove that they could be a 1, maybe a 2 seed, probably not a 1 seed anymore with those couple of losses. If you could be a 2 seed, you could be a 3 seed, you're in good shape heading into March. It's when you get further down, 4 seed, 5 seed, that you start to get yourself into trouble, because there's going to be some tough opponents as the 12 and 13 seeds. They're not going to take it light on you. St. John's, of course, a season ago lost to Arkansas, who was a 7 seed in the second round of the NCAA tournament. So they really know that it's not going to be easy when they head into March. They have to rack up some wins against high-quality opponents. They have not done that so far. It's going to be a real wake-up call for St. John's and Rick Pitino to get some wins down the stretch when they face those tougher opponents in the top 25. So a long week, like I said, for St. John's, but of course they have a very solid 4-3 record so far this season. The losses, of course, though, come against top 25 opponents. St. John's with a lot to prove, still number 23 in the nation heading into this next week. And we'll preview that Ole Miss game at the Garden, 8 o'clock start on Saturday. We'll preview that game on Friday's episode. But that will do it for episode 127 of the MudWatch Sports Podcast. Please subscribe below. I've been Zach Malama. Thanks for watching, and talk to you all on Friday.